Just Kalyani here. Just quickly wanted to add, the idea of this session is to familiarize you with the checklist. So if any point of time you have any questions, please to ask. The idea is to, make the compliance checklist as easy to you as possible. So keep it as interactive as you can. Thank you.
Kalyani, and adding on to your point, I mean, I was thinking that we'll finish all the slides and then take up all the questions.
Sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'd like to start with the. So this slide that you're seeing is the compliance checklist. That is the internal checklist document that we circulate to all the incubatees. Most of you must have seen this checklist. So this kind of broadly covers the Companies Act, the Income Tax Act, the GST Act. So the filings and other formalities related to that are covered. So which is pretty much what we are also covering as part of this session. So this gives you a broad idea of the forms to file and their respective due dates. So moving on, I'd like to first talk about the DIP number. So the Startup India registration. So the Startup India is the Government of India's initiative to help promote startups with their numerous schemes. So to avail the benefits of these schemes, so you would be required to register with the Startup India. So for registering with the Startup India, you will have to first incorporate yourself as a private limited company or firm or LLP. And then once you register yourself, you will be assigned a DIP number. So that will help you avail benefits, various benefits as part of the Startup India schemes. So, yeah, the benefits. I mean, I can name a few. You are exempted from income tax for the first 3 years, and then you have an exemption from the angel tax, and then reduced IPR registration fees, and so on. So that's about the Startup India registration. And then moving on, you have UAM, that is Udyam registration. So this is the MSME registration. So earlier, the MSME registration process was quite cumbersome with so many filings. So they've kind of quite simplified that with this Udyam registration. So when you register, I mean, the idea is for government to identify the MSMEs through this particular route where you'll be assigned a particular identification number, that is the UAM. And all the schemes that will be available to the MSMEs will be linked through these the UAM number for every particular startup that applies for it. So the benefits of
This was formerly known as the Udyog Aadhar registration. Whoever has the Udyog Aadhar number can go ahead and re-register themselves for Udyam, and this has to be done within 31st March 2021. Already you would have received separate emails on this. If you have not done already, please do so.
Okay, so moving on. Okay, so I think I may have missed to mention the benefits of UAM. So you basically have a couple of benefits: the protection against delayed payments, and then subsidy on patents, and collateral free loans, or the subsidized rates. Okay, so that broadly kind of, I mean, we will also be circulating this PPT much later. You can have look at other points. So moving on, the co-founders agreement. While this is not a mandatory requirement, but it is highly recommended that you have this co-founders agreement in place. So so you can avoid any kind of what do you say?
Understanding amongst the founders, that who is expected to do what, and how they kind of clarify it in a document rather than leaving any ambiguity just on discussion basis.
Yeah. So
Usually, if you do it, it is CS will suggest you to do it before incorporation so that this understanding kind of gets captured even in the MOA AOA of the company. But what happens is eventually we have seen with a lot of startups that after the company is incorporated and when you have more you're a single founder and then later on you have some founders on board, then you may have to do it later. Obviously that cannot be avoided, but if there's a team already and before incorporation itself you're able to kind of discuss these things, and that could be incorporated into the MOA. That is why it's written as advised to be done, but mostly practically it may not be possible. Just we are just adding it so that you are aware.
Okay. So further, you have these secretarial compliances. Starting with the board meeting and the minutes. So all promoters and board members of the company must hold a meeting once a quarter of a calendar year and prepare minutes of these meetings following a specified template. And that needs to be circulated to all members of the board. And there is a particular format in which you need to send out notice. Notice has to be sent to all the registered board members 7 days prior to the actual board meeting, and it has to be in specified format. It can be either a postal way of communication or it can be online. And then the due date, that is a board meeting, has to be held once in a quarter, and the time between two consecutive board meetings should not exceed 120 days. And then you have opening of the company's bank account. So this is basic step that you need to do is to have your bank account open. So I mean, any basic transaction, I mean, primarily you will have to sort of transfer your capital contributions, and all your business related transactions needs to be routed through this bank account. So that would be your first step. And then moving on, you'll have to remit the promoters' contribution as per the MOA to the bank account, and this has to be done within 180 days from the date of incorporation. And this is mandated by the Companies Act. And then moving on, you have this form INC 20A. So any newly incorporated company is required to file a declaration for its commencement of business within 6 months of its incorporation. So it needs to be filed within 180 days of incorporation. And the kind of documents that you need to file are bank statements reflecting the remittance from promoters. And the purpose of filing this document is that it is mandated that you have this document filed so as to undertake any business activity, or if you need to borrow any money. So this is a pre-requirement. And you have penalties if you don't file. I don't want to get into details of that, because I assume that all of you will be compliant and there is no necessity to go into details of penalty, but it is there for your reference in case you want to have a look. So moving on, you have appointment of auditors. So the first auditors of the companies are appointed by its board of directors within 30 days of the date of incorporation. And there are other rules as well. I mean, if you fail to appoint them within 30 days, and then you will have to convene an extraordinary general meeting and appoint them within 90 days of the date of incorporation. So those rules are there. But yeah, you will have to appoint your first directors. The board will have to do that within 30 days of the date of incorporation. And the first ADT, that is the form that you file to notify this, is form ADT1. And for the first, auditor, this filing of form is optional. But for the subsequent years, the auditors are appointed. At the first AGM, the company shall appoint auditor for the period of 5 years. So any auditor that you appoint will hold the position for 5 years. So if you appoint the auditor in the first AGM, he will hold his office until the conclusion of the 6th AGM. So again, the form for this subsequent year needs to be filed within 15 days from the date of AGM, and that is mandatory. I hope the difference is kind of clear. So moving on, we have disclosure of interest of directors. So every director shall disclose his concern or interest in any companies or any firm or other association of individuals, which shall indicate his shareholding in such companies or bodies, and in a prescribed format. So due date for doing this is if the first board meeting after incorporation, or the first meeting of a board in every financial year, or whenever the change happens, as in if it happens in between the subsequent, like immediately following board meeting after that, such change. And then the form that needs to be collected from the directors is form MBP1. And then you have statutory registers. So there are various registers that are mandated. For instance, you have the company shareholders, directors, and then the meetings held. You need to have a record of the minutes. And then there is fairly an exhaustive list. We'd be able to, sign up for the CS or legal clinic in case you need further clarity on what needs to be maintained for what. So in case, I mean, you're a manufacturing concern, you will have other applicable acts as well, for which you will need to maintain a huge list of registers. So I'd recommend that you sign up for one of our CS and legal clinics, so you have a better understanding of what needs to be in place. And this is, I mean, the registers that I have mentioned here are part of Companies Act, and that is mandated. So moving forward, we have annual general meeting. So annual general meeting is held yearly for members of the company, and they disclose, they kind of discuss the qualitative and quantitative aspects of that financial year in place. So the due date for convening an AGM is within 9 months from the end of the first financial year. So let's say your financial year is 1920. So that will be ended 31st March 2020. So you will have to convene your AGM 9 months from the 31st March 2020. So for subsequent all AGM after the first AGM should be held within a period of 6 months from the end of the financial year. So any other meeting other than the board meeting or AGM is called extraordinary general meeting. So EGM is basically for transacting any emergency or special discussion with the board and other members. So it is, I mean, if there is something that needs to be urgently transacted, so you convene an EGM, and the other rules like the notice and other minutes, recording of minutes requirement is similar to other meetings. And then you have form MSME 1. So if you're a company and you purchase goods or you subscribe to services from MSMEs, and you make payments to these enterprises exceeding 45 days from the date of acceptance, or I mean from the date of deemed sale, then you need to file MSME 1. So if you, I mean, I hope most of the startups here will be, one of the MSMEs. So if in case I would like to touch up on what constitutes an MSME. So for micro enterprises, the limit is, I mean, if the investment is up to 1 crore and the turnover is up to 5 crore. And for small enterprises, it is investment up to 10 crores and turnover up to 50 crores. And for medium enterprises, it is investment up to 50 crores and turnover up to 250 crores. So due date for filing, this is usually done half yearly. So for the first half period, that is from April to September, the return has to be filed by 30th October of every year. And for the second half, that is from October to March, the return has to be filed by 30th April of every year. So Form MSME 1 need not be filed if your supplier is a medium enterprise. Okay, so DIR 3 KYC. So every director who has been allotted DIN on or before the end of financial year and whose DIN status is approved would be mandatorily required to file Form DIR 3 KYC before 30th September of the immediately next financial year. So failing which you'll have a lot of penalties, which Sneha will be able to advise you on. So this is highly recommended.
And apart from the DIR 3 KYC, every year you're supposed to do the web KYC within certain days. That is simple, like a few minutes process where you just kind of, you do a KYC every year and within a certain period. First time when you do after the DIN is provided is DIR 3 KYC. After that, when you do every year, you're supposed to do web KYC.
Okay. So moving on, you have Form DPT-3. So DPT-3 is a return of deposits that the company must file to furnish information about outstanding receipt of loan or money other than deposits. So Form DPT-3, the filing due date is, the DPT-3 has to be filed as annual return, and due date is cutoff date to ascertain loans and deposits is 31st March. So for a financial year 1920, ending will be 31st March 2020. The due date will be 30th June of 2020. And you have a penalty in case you fail to do so. And then moving on, you have. So okay. I'd like, from here, Rupa will take over.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. So starting off with this AOC code. So AOC code is used to file the financial statement for each financial year with the registrar of companies. So audited financial years with annual report, both directors and auditors needs to be filed within 30 days of the AGM through the AOC form. Application fee is applicable as per the share capital. For instance, if your share capital is 1 lakh, then it is 200 per form. And in case of delay in filing the annual return or financial statement, yes, late fees are applicable according to the period of delay. This also differs on the number of days which you delay on. And so moving on, you have the filing of annual return, which is MGT7. Annual return, as you all know, is it is filed. Sorry, annual return is filed like on annual basis, which has the company's information, its directors' information, KMPs, and etc., which covers almost all the aspects. So MGT7 is an e-form which needs to be filed with ROC as on 31st March, capturing all these shareholder details and KMP details, etc. So if you don't file the MGT7 within 60 days of the AGM, then you will attract a late fee of 100 rupees per day. That is 100 rupees per day of default. So one thing to note in this is, so now as per the policy updates, MGT7 is required to be uploaded in your company's website. If you have a company website, it is compulsory that you update it, like give a separate page for that and upload your MGT7. So that link, the published link, should be provided in the company's directors page, which you will use in the annual return. So that is mandated. If you're not willing to put it up in MGT7, then you should undergo and file a separate form called MGT9, which is also a report which has to be furnished along with the director's report, which gets approved in the board meeting. So moving on, we have appointment of company secretary here. So this isn't applicable to all the companies. So if you have a paid up share capital of 10 crores or more, then you are supposed to have a full-time CS appointed in your company. So after appointment within 30 days, you will be required to file DIR 12. Okay, and penalties applicable here as well. So I have bolded the the maximum penalty which you will attract if you don't comply with this. So, and the final aspect of compliance is the statutory filings. So payment of TDS, everybody will be aware of what TDS is. Anyways, to give a gist, TDS is tax deducted at source. It is a system introduced by the Income Tax Department whereby individuals responsible for making payments have to deduct tax at source at prescribed rates. So it applies to salaried professionals, commissions or interest received, etc. It almost applies to everything. So there are different tax rates which you can refer online and it's available. So the due date for filing TDS is on or before 7th of every month. Failing to do so, you will attract 1.5% of penalty of the total tax liability. Then if you have, filed for TDS, then you would have to you would have to file the TDS return as well. So these are quarterly statements submitted to the IT department by the tax detector, and it contains information pertaining to TDS detected and deposited. So there are the due date of filing. This is 30 days from end of each quarter. And in the last quarter, that is your Q4, which is from Jan to March, you can file that particular return up to 31st May. So there are different forms which are available for TDS returns, which three of them are indicated here: Form 24Q, 26Q, and 27Q. And according to the kind of deduction, you would have to pick one and file the return accordingly. So yes, this is also another optional thing. So advance tax, it means it's nothing but the income tax, which is paid in advance in some instead of lump sum amount, which is paid at the end of every year, every financial year. So it is also known as pay as you earn tax. So if your tax liability is more than 10K, then you would have to definitely pay advance taxes, and the income tax department has given in what month and what date, what percentage of your tax should be paid, and that is what is given here under the due date on or before 15 June, 15 September, and so on. So this is an optional one. So I'm moving on to payment of ESI and PF. So ESI PF is another important aspect. If your company or your startup has 10 plus employees, then ESI is mandatory for you. You need to register yourself, your company under ESIC, and then you would have to deduct, a certain percentage of certain percentage of ESI from the salary of your employees. PF is also the same. If you have 20 plus employees, then it is mandatory that you register your company and then deduct salaries if their slab is less than 15,000. So it is the due date for doing this is on or before 15th of each and every month, like it happens throughout the year. And professional tax, it is advised that everybody registers your company for this. It is levied by the state on the income earned by way of profession, trade, calling, or employment. The application, it is applicable from the date of incorporation itself. And it is tax which is applicable to all the professions, trades, or employees, and levied based on the income of such profession, trade, or commission, etc. So due date for this is on or before 30th September first for the first half of financial year, on or before 31st March for the second half of financial year. That means you would have to file it twice in the financial year, in one financial year. So another important thing, GST, which we all would have heard of it, is the goods and services tax, and It has replaced many indirect taxes in India, such as the excise duty, VAT, and service taxes, etc. If the turnover of your company exceeds 40 lakhs, say you're a product-based startup, then you are mandated to register your company under GST. And then if you're a service-based company, if your turnover is greater than or equal to 20 lakhs, you will have to register your company under GST. So there are, if you file for GST, you would have to file GST returns as well. So GSTR1 and GSTR3B are two types of returns. GSTR1, which you are required to do monthly, is a monthly or quarterly return that should be filed by every registered dealer. That is, if you're GST registered, then you will have to do it. So monthly filing of GST is mandatory for all the taxpayers with turnover more than 5 crores. Due date for filing this is 10th of every next month. The GST 3B is a monthly summary return filed by a taxpayer by the 20th of every month. GST 3B discloses supplies made during the month along with the GST to be paid. So if you are a registered taxable person, then you will have to do this also. Like you will have to file return for this also. So, and moving on to the support services of IITMIC. Before that, if anyone has any queries or queries in the sense any intricate queries, we have a CS and legal clinic as Divya indicated earlier. So we would be happy to, connect you with them and take your queries forward. So moving on to the support services, these are the consultants which are available with us. So Agria is one of our partners who does end-to-end bookkeeping services, which basically covers accounting, preparation of your financial statements, keeping your books, and managing the taxes linked to purchases, etc. So YSS Legal is the company where we have our CS and legal consultants from there. So they are the ones who are also available in the clinics as well. So they take care of your company's legal and company secretary work. So right from your incorporation until closure, everything is taken care by YSS in terms of the company related activities. So Happyman HR Consultant is our fairly recent partner who provides HR related services like your payroll management, employee database management, or policy making. They provide end-to-end HR services. So we have separate emails sent out to startups with each and every consultant scope of services and everything. If you have any doubts, we could help you with that as well. And these are our third-party service partners, which are like, SolidWorks, Zoho, and we have MathWorks and Altair coming up, which if you are going to register by yourself, then you will have to pay, a fairly large amount to, get these licenses and all that. But they have extended their services to our community free of cost for the sake of startups development and to leverage their services. So we have 5 third-party service providers here. In case if anyone wants to avail any of these services, you can get in touch with me. So as I said, Altair and MathWorks is also another good service partners of ours. So MathWorks, you get MATLAB license for 1 year free of cost. All their modules are given. And Altair, the same model applies. You get HyperWorks and it's 40 plus modules for 1 year free of cost. So we are ending it here. Happy to take any questions from you all.